Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you're all having a good day. Yes, I know, it's been a while and I got stuck into a modded Minecraft project on streams, and unfortunately I find it quite difficult to maintain focus on two major projects at once, which bodes well for later this month when I actually plan to start a Skyblock series. But I digress, we're back here in the Minecraft Survival Guide, and today we're going to take a look at how we can use wind charges for this city building project that I have in mind around here. Another reason I took a really long break from Survival Guide was that I was still trying to figure out the shape of what I want this build project here to be, because I want it to be somewhere that I can present a bunch of tutorials to you folks that's not just tutorials on how to build the exact buildings that I am making, right? I want it to be a more general focus of tutorials on how to plan a city so that you can take that into your own worlds with whatever build themes you have in mind and kind of take these ideas and apply them to whatever it is you're doing without you having to exactly copy what I'm doing. And that kind of stuff is difficult. That takes a lot more time, it takes a lot more theoretical knowledge, and it's the kind of thing that I find quite difficult to describe, but I'm going to try my best. And today we're going to start with transportation as a focus. We've already started with transportation as a focus, really. If you take a look at the infrastructure we have built already, albeit in very bare bones format, I have an ice boat road acting as a kind of monorail that's going to take us to other parts of the city. I imagine it's just going to be one big line traveling out there towards that mountain, and then maybe over there towards that mountain. So realistically, it's not going to be huge, but that's kind of the functionality of ice boat roads for you, really. It works best if you're traveling in a straight line, because as soon as you start to add curves and diagonals, the boat drifts. If you find yourself traveling a very curved path, you really have to compensate, steer before the turn, and some of that stuff can take a while to get used to. It certainly doesn't work in tight spaces or on diagonals. So we're sort of limited, really, by how we can travel along the ice boat roads if we want to use that as a major form of transport. But I also want to play around with verticality in this area. We've already got that over here in the form of these cliffs and so forth, and I was thinking, what if this city had created ways to work with the terrain in that sense and counteract that by having vertical elevators and stuff like that. There are many different ways to travel vertically in Minecraft, many of which are really easily accessible to the player. Right now, obviously, I can get up onto this cliff by flying, but I'm not certain I want to do that all the time, and there might be buildings in the way once I'm done. So we want a form of vertical transport that suits the needs of this city area. And we could make elevators using water bubble columns, but those feel very 1.13. And we're in Minecraft 1.21. There is a brand new revolution in transport, and it's right here in this shulker box in breeze rod form. We're going to be using wind charges a lot more in this area, and in fact, I want to theme a lot of this city around the concept of wind and flying. And that actually makes perfect sense. It all kind of came together in my head when I realized I was talking about this platform here as maybe having some sort of airship dock and being the origin point potentially, or at least a stop-off point for the giant floating shipwreck on the floating island that we built back closer to spawn. And then the idea coalesced, fully formed in my head. This is a city that's going to be all kind of themed around wind power and airships and sailing through the skies. And wind power is a way we can get around this city by using it for vertical transport. So despite the fact that this is the nickname for Chicago, I'm going to end up calling this the Windy City a lot. Get used to that name. You'll be hearing it in future videos as we tackle this build project. So wind charges, as you just saw, are one of those skill-based things that it's a little bit difficult to get on top of easily. So, like right here, this is difficult to get on top of easily because if I want to time my wind charge jump perfectly to get the right sort of height, it's a very specific timing, and I don't think I'm actually able to get enough height to reach the top of that platform. Wind charges, if well timed, can probably propel you about 7 to 8 blocks in the air. The good thing is you don't take full damage when you land from the boost given to you by a wind charge, but manually triggered wind charges don't have a whole lot of potential for getting you up taller spaces like this, which is where redstone comes in. I've been keeping track of what folks have been doing with some of the new additions in 1.21 whilst I've been playing modded 1.20 and haven't had access to these features. And dispensers and wind charges are a match made in heaven. We're going to walk up to this cliff, we're going to place a dispenser right here, and we're going to put a pressure plate in front of it. We're going to load this with wind charges, and the other important thing is that the wind charges have something to impact on, because if I step on it right like that, it's going to fly away and land a couple of blocks away instead of hitting the player. So it's not going to knock me back, it's just going to go right through me and hit one of the blocks behind me. So I want to have a block basically right here, which could be another dispenser if we want it to be, but as soon as that happens, the wind charge activates and bounces me up in the air. So if we have a second dispenser right here, we fill that with wind charges as well. The two wind charges impact off each other and the results are a lot more intense. In fact, I'm only one block off landing on top of the cliffside here. So all we need to do is raise this up by one block and it makes a pretty effective elevator to the upstairs floor. In fact, I think it's going to be worth establishing a style for these platforms, which might not take the form of these mangrove logs, but they're just what I had on me because I also really want to make red one of the themes of this area. So we'll start by establishing these mangrove logs. We'll put the two dispensers side by side like that. We'll put another mangrove log there with the pressure plate on it, and we'll have maybe a little platform in front of this with some steps that we can easily run up onto, or we'll just continue the landscape from here over to this to make it something we can simply walk up to. And with the wind charges in both dispensers like this, all we need to do is walk directly between them, and we've made it up here. What is the difference in height here? We start at Y91, we end up on Y106, so that's a 15 block jump. That is really pretty good. Basically doubling what I think the maximum height is from using a wind charge, jumping and right-clicking. I know what you're thinking. How far can we take this? How many dispensers can we load into this, and how high can we go with more dispensers? Well, the problem then is that we need to activate all of the dispensers and have the wind charges impact on something. So now we're creating something that we basically have to drop into from above instead of just walk up to. So maybe we'll consider 15 blocks, one of the standard heights that you can achieve using these wind charge elevators, and we'll call it there. But I really want to do a little bit more testing. So let's hop in here. Once again, we're starting at Y91, and we make it up to 122, it looks like. So that's absurd. That's like 30 blocks, which is once again basically doubled the height we were able to get from the previous set of wind charges. Now, what if we replace this stone block here with another dispenser? How would that work out? Once again, starting at Y91, we end up at 141. Okay, so that's 50 blocks now. Not quite doubling it, but still pretty close. So that's 7, 15, 30, 50. Those are all heights I can work with. Those are all going to be pretty successful. And from what I've seen, Cubfan on the Hermitcraft server has been playing around with some of this stuff. I think maybe we can install the two dispensers underneath this, have the wind charges impact on a central block here, as long as the central block is not a full block. Now, that's the difficult part here, because we need to use something that we can put a pressure plate on. But if we put the dispensers here and here, as well as here and here, we should be able to fire a wind charge through a non-solid block that we can activate using a pressure plate. We could put a fence down there. In fact, let me try that real fast. You see this used in village houses as a table, but what if we use it as a launch pad? The problem then is we're not actually stepping on the pressure plate because we're hitting the fence hitbox, because you could probably hit the... Yeah, you can activate the pressure plate by walking into the fence, but not on top of the fence? That's kind of wild, actually. That's something I'd never considered about those. Right, let's not use the fence then. Let's go back to what Cubfan was using, a composter. The genius of this is that, of course, a composter's hitbox on the inside is hollow, so the dispenser will fire a wind charge through that wall of the composter, but it'll hit the other side, and likewise from this side over there. Now, long term, we'd probably want to either fill this up with wind charges or even have a separate chest or barrel situation that can feed wind charges in there so that they never run out. But realistically speaking, I don't know if I'm going to be taking this, whatever 9 times 64 times is. It's 576 or something like that. Yeah, like I doubt I'll end up using these elevators more than 500 times, but you never know. We could see that happening in future if I spend a lot of time around here. For now, we're just going to be placing the wind charges in each of these dispensers, and we'll see what happens when we get launched. Boom! Yep, okay, that's definitely getting us the height we did before. So the composter is an innovation. Although there is something notable happening each time here. When I use this and we land... Let's see what happens when we land. Okay, there we go. There is a distinct difference between landing with elytra and gliding and landing after you fall with a wind charge. Once you activate your elytra, you are leaving yourself vulnerable to fall damage. And that's something that is very much worth considering in this scenario, because I automatically trigger my elytra a lot. I just hit the jump button a second time once I'm flying, but if we wanted to, we could land from this and take no fall damage thanks to the fact that the only thing propelling us is the wind charges. Either way, I think 15 blocks is going to be enough for this particular application, or maybe we can stick with 30 depending on what we end up building on top of this plateau. It would be kind of nice to jump into this, get propelled up to the top floor of a building of some kind and land on a balcony or something like that. But I think for now, the cool thing about the composter is actually essentially that the wind charge from that dispenser impacts on the inside of the composter. We don't need to put a solid block here. So if you wanted to, you could just use composters for stuff like this. And what we have here is a super adjustable wind-based elevator design that basically guarantees you don't take full damage unless you activate your elytra by mistake. Of course, we're not done yet, because if you're anything like me, you probably want to see the logical limits that this can be taken to. So we're going to make another composter. We're going to surround this composter with 4 dispensers. We're going to put a pressure plate on top of that, and then we're going to put 4 more dispensers on top of this, fill them all with wind charges, and see how high we get. You might think we wanted to put a dispenser underneath this, facing upwards, but I've already tried that, and for whatever reason, the dispenser just fires the wind charge through everything above it, including the player. So there isn't really much additional lift we can get with the wind charge being fired out of a vertical dispenser. But I'm going to split these up into groups of 16 or less, because we're probably not going to use this more than once or twice. I'm going to check the height we're at when we're standing on this pressure plate. That's at Y93, and prepare for liftoff. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, okay, we made it up to 233. So quick maths, that's about 140 blocks. But if I end up building anything 140 blocks tall in this area, then I mean, that's fantastic, actually. I think it's probably about the height of some of those mountains. So if it turns out that the people of this town or city or whatever we're building here conquered the local area with the power of wind and the power of flight, then that is really the effect that I'm after in the first place. I think 15 blocks might just about work, but I've really got to work on the timing, because I don't want to be stuck in no man's land out here and unable to reach this block, but I also don't want to just hold forward and collide with the block in front of me. So maybe we'll make some kind of vertical shaft around this that looks a little bit more like a traditional elevator. But either way, this is slime block launcher levels of fun. I'm having a lot of fun with these, and I think we're going to incorporate them around this area a little bit more. But I want to find some kind of cool aesthetic way of working these into our surroundings. And I'm thinking, since this area is going to be the Windy City and very wind-themed, we need to start working on some giant fans. Okay, I've spent a little time in a creative test world figuring out how we can decorate some of these wind charge launchers, and I've come up with some really cool designs, all involving giant fans, for which we're going to need some quartz blocks, which I don't have a great deal of, but fortunately I have a bunch of stonemasons up here. And the whole reason to have stonemasons in a trading hall, in my opinion, is for the final trade in their list, where they will literally sell you full blocks of quartz, meaning that you don't have to go all the way through the nether, tearing out every quartz or block in order to get hold of some. Much better, in my opinion, to save all of that loose quartz for comparators and daylight detectors, you know, the stuff that actually needs quartz. Buy all your quartz blocks from stonemasons. The full blocks of quartz we're going to smelt to turn them into smooth quartz, and from there we're going to turn some of them into slabs. So back at our build area, here's what I want to compose these fans of. We've got ourselves the dispensers, composters, and pressure plates, the wind charges to go in the dispensers. We're going to use quartz for the fans, smooth quartz specifically, although it shouldn't matter too much, because we're going to cover those with copper grates. I have a ton of these left over from the trial chamber teardown, and I'm planning on using those, maybe waxed, maybe unwaxed, depending on whether I want the fans to look like they have aged. I've also brought along some pillar quartz, because we're going to be cutting some of the smooth quartz using a stone cutter, and I wanted to demonstrate something real quick. The stonemasons will trade you 2 types of quartz. They'll trade you regular quartz blocks, which you can smelt to turn into smooth quartz, and they will trade you quartz pillars, which you cannot. The quartz and smooth quartz can be put in a stone cutter to cut into slabs and stairs. The pillar quartz cannot. However, the pillar quartz can be put in a crafting table and turned into regular quartz slabs and regular quartz stairs. They won't have the pillar texture on them, but if you want to split up your pillar quartz a little bit and you don't plan on using the pillar texture all that much, even though you don't get as good a crafting ratio out of the crafting table as you might out of the stone cutter, you can still get some quartz stairs out of it. So we're going to be turning some of these into quartz stairs and slabs, just in case we want them for texture, and then we'll be stashing the rest of the pillar quartz away, because I don't plan on using it for these designs. With the stone cutter, I am going to turn 32 smooth quartz blocks into smooth quartz slabs, giving us a stack of the slabs and a stack of the blocks. We're going to take down this mangrove wood construct that I have here, and we're actually going to move this 1 block back. I think that might actually give us a better ramp up. If we kind of hold forward, we might still be able to hit the edge of the cliff there without getting caught on the overhang. And we're going to make this a design where the composter is in the ground with the 2 dispensers either side. I checked in creative, and this should still give us about 14 or 15 blocks of lift when we run over the pressure plate, meaning it should be enough to get us up onto this plateau here. We'll add the pressure plate on top there. We'll add the wind charges into the dispensers. I'll just put a stack and a little extra in here for now, but we've brought enough breeze rods that we can completely stock one or two of these. And of course, now the idea is that we're going to decorate this to look like a fan, but we're going to have a mesh over the top of it, naturally, so that we can walk over the top of it easily without there being stairs and slabs giving us a bumpy ride along the way. And I think the copper grates work really well for this. Consider the cage that is normally on the front of a desk fan. You know, you don't want to put your hand into a fan while it's moving, and so obviously you have something to protect the user from that, and I think copper grates work out really well for this. We could also potentially use scaffolding, although scaffolding will have a harder time standing over the top of some of the stairs and slabs that we plan on using for this, so naturally you'd want it to go up and then possibly over like this. So yeah, it doesn't quite work as well as the copper grates in my opinion. So we're going to remove the copper grates for now. We're going to put some blocks underneath here, and of course we need to address the elephant in the room, which is that Minecraft is a blocky grid game, and if you're making something that has fan blades which usually curve upwards and then outwards, there's a very real chance you end up building something that looks like a swastika, which we're not going to do. Naturally, we don't want symbols of fascism in our game, and also if you look up reference images of fan blades on Google image search, for example, you more often than not come up with fans that have 3 or 5 blades, which I will admit is very difficult to do in a Minecraft setting, especially at a smaller scale. I've managed to get something that I think more or less works for this fan design though. We're going to have a 3-bladed fan here, and whenever we make a fan that has 4 blades, simply because it's easier in Minecraft terms, we're going to make sure that they look like wider blades that cannot resemble a swastika in any way. So I'm going to throw a smooth quartz block directly underneath the composter for the central hub of the fan, and then around the outside here, we're going to place some stair blocks there, like so, here, like this, and around here we're going to have it facing that way, I believe. Then we're going to put the copper grates over the top of that, like so, and then we're going to make sure that the ground around this is level with the grates here, so that we simply walk over the top. It's going to propel us upwards, and easily we make it to that plateau. That's perfect, actually. We're going to change up the surroundings a little bit later, but for now I'm just going to put this grass platform in here so that we can test out how easily we can just walk on there, and yeah, we just about make it up there. It's occasionally, there's a little bit of variation just because of where you're standing and where the wind charges impact, so we might have to take it a little more gradually, but I think we can probably finesse that. We can get used to the timing of it and potentially create like an elevator shaft around the outside of here so that it's guaranteed that we'll hit the top there once we have some buildings in place. And I want to walk over this and not necessarily focus on the jump, so I can focus on the design of the fan below. And I think the wind charges do actually give it this sense of animation, so it looks like the fan is rotating slightly with the wisps of wind that come out of the wind charge particles. To emphasize that, I actually want to replace the dirt and grass blocks that are down here with something that provides a darker background, and I think we're going to line this entire thing in black concrete. This will also provide shadows which kind of shade the stair blocks a little bit, which does make them look a little more effective because it looks like they are curved blades underneath there, and the copper grates kind of complete that image by not giving you a full view of the entire stair block and making it really obvious that it's a Minecraft stair. I don't have the concrete crafting materials on me here, so I'll have to head back to the storage room in order to get some of those, and I'm considering where else we want to build a fan. I want to build a larger one, probably around here, because that's what's going to be what gets us up to the central platform of the train station. I don't have the build in mind for this quite yet, but I think we can maybe make a start on that today just by adding in a fan that's going to be like a centerpiece for the forecourt of the train station further down. But for now, let's take this boat back to the storage system, grab some concrete, and I'll be back at the build area in just a second. I suppose the question that remains is, do we want the texture of the concrete powder, or do we want the full blackness of the concrete? Is it even going to show up underneath the copper grates? That's what we're here to find out. We'll take away the copper grates briefly just to make sure that we can get at some of this, and I think underneath here we're going to put these underneath the level of the fan itself, so it's obvious that there is some sort of cavity here. Yeah, honestly, I think I like the full black concrete rather than the concrete powder. I don't really want too much texture behind here. I just want it to feel like a flat black void against which the fan is spinning. So we're going to leave those in there. I'm probably going to surround the outside of this in black concrete as well, just so when you're looking at it from the top down, you really don't see any of the dirt and stuff that's around it. There we go. I think that's much better. I think it's got a nice high contrast between the black concrete and the white of the fan. I think the animation provided by the wind charges really does look quite cool with the spinning, and I think this should still be enough to get us up to the next level. There we go. Perfect. So once we decide on some kind of build around this, whether it's inside of a building or whether it's between two buildings and this is like an alleyway that transports you up to the top plateau here, I think that's going to work splendidly well. So I think right now I want to head back over to the station area and work on a much larger fan design right here in the ground. Although on second thoughts, maybe we'll build a larger station building around this, so maybe I wanted it back a little way from the cliff. Maybe somewhere like here. But once again, we're going to set it up so that the dispensers are in the floor and it's just something you walk over casually. We might not use wind charges in all 4 of the dispensers either, since that's probably going to propel us up about 50 blocks. But the point is, we'll be able to walk over the top of it, we'll get shot up into the sky, and we'll be able to land on some sort of balcony or entrance or, you know, something around the train station here. And once again, the copper grates are going to be surrounding this, so we're going to carve out an area here because we want to build a fan underneath the copper grates below the level of these dispensers. And I've dug out 4 blocks around the outside here so we can start on our fan blade design. So these are going to come out by one like this. We're going to have a section of 2 blocks there and 3 blocks along there. And then to complete the 3D element of the blade, we're going to add 3 blocks along there and 2 on the end here, like so. And with that design repeated on all 4 sides, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that looks pretty good. We're going to border this with black concrete as before, and then we're going to cover that with copper grates. It can sit as the centerpiece of the forecourt area and give us a way of getting up to the train station. So now with the concrete in, the copper grates over the top, and the fan loaded with wind charges, we can step onto this, get propelled up in the air, and from the air you can see that looks like a pretty decent floor fan, right? If we want to emphasize the circular form ever so slightly, we could do that with the copper grate cover, making it more of a circular construction instead of having the squared off edges like that, but I kind of like it like that as well. I think it looks pretty good. With 4 dispensers, that's definitely enough to get us up onto the station building. We might actually get onto the roof with that. So maybe we'll take the wind charges out of one dispenser, we'll split them between the other 3, and the 4th dispenser is going to stay there just as an aesthetic thing because it's obviously symmetrical and it works for the fan design. But then when we jump onto this, yeah, that's a much more accessible height, I think, for the station building. So the station building I have in my head, at least, obviously there's nothing there right now, but what I'm imagining is some sort of balcony up there we can land on, board a train, and get going into the nether to travel somewhere else. And I think this fan is going to be a great way of doing that. Once again, completely cancelling out any fall damage we would take because the wind charges prevent that, as long as we don't activate the elytra. So wherever we land, as long as it's not lower than the point at which we started, we're not going to take any damage. Now naturally, we're not going to put all of these fan designs on the floor. In the Windy City, there are going to be ventilation fans and other things, maybe even providing wind-based power to some of the buildings. So I'm thinking what we do is we build one of these in a vertical aspect, and that's going to become a feature of one of the builds that we'll start here. And maybe we'll work on that in the next episode, or maybe we'll work on it on live streams. We're going to slowly build up this city, and we're not going to do every single thing on camera for YouTube videos, purely because a lot of the time my building process is improvisational, it takes a lot of contemplation, and it's not necessarily the kind of thing that I can do a succinct tutorial on. But if you want to catch the streams, they're over on twitch.tv/Pixlriffs, and we'll definitely be working a bit more on this area on stream. For now though, I think we're going to start building a giant fan over here, and this time, since we're building it vertically, I can add the copper grates first, and we can take a look at what the fan design adds to the back of this. So right here we've got our 9x9 of copper grates all built out. We're going to use droppers for this instead of dispensers because they'll have the same texture, but they don't need to dispense anything, so droppers are just slightly cheaper to use. I'm not certain exactly what we want to put in the middle of this, considering you can't put a pressure plate on a wall. Maybe an item frame or something would look similar, but in this case, I think maybe we'll just put a piece of black concrete there. And around the back here, we're going to draw the fan blades. Now, naturally, we don't have slabs to work with here, considering that you can't put slabs vertically, so we're going to do one set of blocks and then another set that's a block back. We're going to build the fan blades exactly the same way as we did on the flat. We're just going to build them vertically like so, and I still think with a little bit of shadow in there, that's looking pretty solid. Having the slabs there in the flat design, or having these one block back in the vertical design, also means that the fan blades don't look like they connect so much, which is honestly preferable. And it's been a little bit confusing translating this to a vertical design, like I have to turn my brain at 90 degrees, but I feel like I'm getting the hang of it. But yeah, that's looking good. Definitely needs the black background on it though, because frankly, you can't really see the fan blades super easily when they have the landscape there behind them and nothing to contrast them with. Fortunately, I brought just enough black concrete to make it work, so let's take a look at that, and yeah, definitely a lot more visible now. It's going to be one of those things that looks really good from a distance too. Yeah, you can definitely see more of the white on black going on in there once you stand a little further away. Up close, you tend to see more of the copper grates, but at distance, yeah, that's working really well for me. I think maybe we will unwax some of the stuff around the outside here and maybe wax it when it ages a little bit more, both to create a bit more texture in the color of this and also to maybe give the impression that it's more rounded, right? So, like, I imagine a lot of the contaminating stuff for the copper would be blown away by the center part of the fan, but maybe around the outside where the blades aren't creating as much force. I'm not sure if that's necessarily how it works. It might be the other way around, but maybe it'll be like contaminants have had a chance to cling on a little bit more around the edges where the fan blades don't reach. We're going to let that age naturally, but one of the other things I'm planning on making in this area at some stage is another version of my copper aging machine, the one that spreads everything out using redstone. Got a tutorial for that elsewhere on my channel, but I never built the finished, like, fully automated redstone version in survival, so I'm looking forward to giving that a go around here somewhere. For now, though, even though it is raining, I think we are going to wrap up the episode there. Had fun with wind charges today, and hopefully you folks enjoyed this look at maybe integrating some of the redstone and transport ideas and aesthetic ideas that are going to be taking shape as we build out the Windy City. But folks, that's going to be it from me. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. My name has been Pixlriffs. It's good to be back. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you folks soon. Take care. Bye for now.